Well, hey there, folks, and welcome back. Where we last left off, we had managed to turn these all into proper simulaty physics that can knock things over and bonk into each other and have a lot of fun. Next up, we are going to add some actual destruction, maybe some sound effects. We'll see what the good day brings. So first, a super quick flyby introduction for anyone who's never played much with destruction and chaos physics and all that. We're going to start just by making a real simple thing that can fall down and crack and make a bit of a mess on the ground. And so to do that, we'll go ahead over to our fracture selection mode, which is Shift F5. You'll see this in pretty much every version of Unreal post 5.1, I believe. Just hanging out there. I don't even think you have to enable a plugin anymore. And I remember back in Unreal Engine 4 where you needed to get like an experimental branch of Unreal for chaos physics, and this is better. But let's go ahead and just start by grabbing an object. Ideally, we're going to make everything except the walls and the floor destructible in our project, but we'll just get started with, say, this guy here. We're also going to want to change that material since this one is going to change based on the environment. So what we want to do is go ahead and under fracture mode, we're going to make sure we have our object selected. Only one at a time. If you select multiple, it's going to get weird. Let's go ahead and do new. And let's create a little folder. I called mine broken things inside my object. And we'll call it whatever we want. Cube 7 geometry collection is just fine. And we'll see it'll change to a red grid pattern once we've kind of gotten started. Explode amount won't work yet. And then under fracture, just pick the shape of however you want it to break apart. So I'll start real simple with uniform, just the very first one there, and leave everything at its defaults, and just scroll down. Just scroll down, it's right there. And I can do fracture, and it'll break apart into some pieces. We can see all the pieces here. They're all under one parent, and I can also see them by pulling apart right here. Cool, isn't that fun? And if I want to go one step further, maybe I could also go to cluster and click auto cluster, and watch this. It's going to go from one parent to a few different parents. It kind of figures out how this could break down into different subgroups. And that's really it. That's really it to get started with our chaos destruction. And so if we want to see if this is working, well, we can actually just exit right out of here. We got this guy here. Let's just bring him up in the air a little bit. Let's make sure we change him to movable. You see we still have his baked shadow there. And actually, you know what? He's already movable. There's no way to have a static geometry collection. Geometry collection, similar to like a static mesh or a skeletal mesh, it is just a thing that holds geometry. But of course, this has some other stuff going on. Let's go ahead and instead of going into VR preview, we can just hit simulate and watch it fall, and we can see, right now it's not breaking. Oh, gee, what if we bring it up a lot higher? Try again. Nope, not breaking. So the reason for that is our damage threshold, which at the beginning is actually set to be pretty high. So if we go down under damage, and this might be something you have to open up a little bit. So geometry collection, damage threshold, I can say that word. These numbers are pretty high. So what I'm going to start by doing is removing a couple zeros from everything. So we got 50, 500, 5,000. And we could also use specific size for damage threshold. I still find that tends to keep things pretty high. So it's usually easier just to crank this down until you find something that you are happy with. And if I try simulate now, boop, there we go. It kind of crumbles apart a little bit. And you know, if we wanted to crumble apart more than that, then we just start to lower those thresholds a bit. But the point is, we now have something that can destruct. Now, of course, we don't want our material to look like this. It gives it away. It gives it away that it's going to break. So instead, what we want to do is hide it under the veneer of, you know, a material. Maybe not a material that's based on like the world grid, but something like that. So what I can actually just do is find in broken things where I've got my little geometry collection, and I can just drag this in, even put it in the same spot, you know, it's kind of hiding out there. It says it's a geometry collection. Now, one thing that's a little annoying is you'll note that that damage threshold, it doesn't save that, right? So every time we put something in here, we have to change that again. We could go ahead and create a blueprint, or what we can do is we can actually just swap a bunch of these out. Now, normally to do a quick swap of a bunch of objects into something like a geometry collection, I would just select all the objects like so, and go ahead and then find, you know, the object that I want to swap them all with in here, and then, just go ahead and do replace selected actors with that. But that's actually going to cause some problems with our light baking, and it still won't be very easy to access everything going on in here. So especially because of the things that we want to be able to change, like our damage threshold, I'm actually going to want to convert this into a blueprint just to make it really, really easy to get into here. And in fact, you know what, this is a blueprint that I think we can use for everything that we want to have in here that will be destructible. I think so. I'm going to find out. So I'm going to go up here and say new, or convert selection to blueprint class, and we'll say geometry collection, not geometry cache, geometry collection actor right there, and we are going to call it BP breakable. BP breakable. That sounds fun, and it can go in broken things. Cool. And we'll say yes, and that should open up, and we got our geometry collection right here. So this will be where we actually put our geometry collection. This is where we can start to mess with, what we want our default breakable values to be. Maybe I make the smallest value a little bit lower. It's all in a blueprint now, so pretty extensible. Not going to mess at all with the event graph or anything there yet, and just pretty happy with what I've got going on in my default. So now that we've got BP breakable, we can just go through and start to select all the other assets here that we would like to convert into the other one. Now, something important to do is actually going to be to make sure that we tell all of these to be set to movable. Here's a weird little quirk. There's a lot of weird little bugs still with chaos physics and geometry collections. If I leave this as static and I do this conversion, even though geometry collections cannot be static, this is somehow going to be like stuck in there and broken, and these are all going to be black. Trust me, not so great. And so instead we're going to set these all to movable first before we do the conversion. Same one over here too, set to movable. And now when we go over and we've got this selected and we do our swap, BP breakable, there we go. Some of them are going to change size. I don't really care. I can scale them all up now if I really want to. So now we just want to see if they can break. So we can do a quick save all, and we can go ahead now into VR mode. We got that one kind of cracking the one below it, fun. Let's go into this view here and try knocking some stuff around. So, hard to get under my table, and we'll just try hitting it around a little bit, and yeah, we can see the damage threshold is still too high, so we can try lowering it down a little bit, or just cranking up the mass or velocity on our weapon there. Let's start by just going ahead and changing the damage threshold to something even lower. So let's try something like 10 and 50 and 500. Compile that, save all. If needed, we'll, just to see how we would do it, we can open up our pistol and crank the velocity over here to say, I don't know, 1600 or 1700, whatever number I'm pressing on the keyboard. And we'll go ahead and press play, hit play, watch that first cracking happen, and you can kind of see there's something funky going on with the textures, so we will want to correct that. And let's try now. Whap, 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 whap. There we go. So there's a little bit of cracking happening, and you can see the textures just not doing so great. And we're still, a little bit at a high damage threshold, considering what our balls are able to manage. So why don't we go ahead and try to both increase the mass of the balls and then also change our texture in here. And it's nice that's a blueprint now, so we can just change it on a bunch of them at once. So BP breakable, let's make this 5, make this 20, make this 100, heck, make it 50, why not? And then we definitely want to change that material to something that isn't dealing with world space. So, all right, let's just search for grid, and there we go, there's a texture, maybe the checker or this. Let's just try dragging that onto here and make material based on that. Yeah, it doesn't match perfectly. We could mess with it more if we wanted to, but that's kind of a thing I'm okay with. I'm going to put it in broken things because it's clearly broken. Do a quick fix up redirectors. I do that compulsively now, and it's doing it on just that particular blueprint. We could just open up here and also put it there too in our broken things. There we go, grid accent. So they all have that. And that one's kind of aligned a little bit more. Maybe I'll just increase the UV just a little bit more So we just go, boy, texture coordinate. And then we'll just make the tiling maybe like 3 times that. There we go. That looks better to me. Cool. Okay, so we got a grid. You know, if we want to scale up some of these, that's cool. I've already got some stuff set to be scaling up automatically. Fun. Cool. Okay, and now they're all set to movable. We got that one that's just going to fall. And we're going to make the mass of our balls a little more powerful. So in our projectile, we'll just go ahead and under that static mesh, actually, you know what? I don't think it's going to be the static mesh because we're not using any collision there. In our collision for the mass, let's try making the mass. 100 seems a little big. Let's try like 10. Let's try 10. Save all. I'm sure there's a relationship between mass and damage, but just trying to get us all started here today with the basics. Yeah, there we go. There's a material that's not going to move. All right, grab this guy. There we go. There's a little more action happening there. Yeah, look at that. That's crumpling. Broke. Kind of like how it gets stuck inside there. Yeah, you know, this is kind of what I'm going for. All right, neat. And then, you know, the idea is that we just want to start to propagate this around. We've got a ball, we've got some grabbable cubes, and we just want to make sure that they can all break. So let's go through this again really quickly. We'll go through fracture, and we'll grab our ball there, and we'll say new, and we'll put it inside, not our engine folder. Don't put things in your engine folder. And we'll put it in broken things, leave the name. This one, I'll do it more like a radial fracture, because why not? Not change any settings. Internal materials, you can start to mess with that if you wanted to. We'll go ahead and fracture. Nice. And then I will go and auto cluster. So that has a few different levels. Neat. And that should be good. You know, stuff down here for UV and materials. Not diving into that right now. Do a quick save all there. And then let's do a new one. Oops, don't do a new one because I got to grab a new object. Let's see what this cube is coming from. This cube is coming from our SM cube right there. So let's go ahead and create a new one for you. Put that in our broken things folder. Grab thing. This one will do it as brick. Brick would be fun, right? Or like perfect little tinier cubes. Sure, why not? Perfect little tinier cubes. We'll fracture it there. And, ooh, it's right there, like inside our blueprint. That feels weird. But let's do it. It's interesting how it wants to stay with world grid space. I was thinking it was going to be like perfect smaller cubes. I think it would be if this was rotated, but not going to worry about that. We'll go and hit fracture. I could add a few more slices if I want to, fine, just to mix it up a little. There we go. So let's go fracture, and then we can go ahead and, try our explosion. Make sure it looks okay. Yeah, look at all those tiny pieces. That's cool. And then we can go ahead and do our auto cluster. Again, we don't have to do it. I just like how auto cluster breaks things down into more groups. And then that's good. And then last thing I think we need, I'm not going to make our guns break, but I do. Oh, you know what? I want to make it so our projectile can break also. So let's go ahead and find our projectile. Just to like really have some fun here with competing things. So this material, or this object rather, this is just our standard sphere. Let's just drag that out into the scene for a moment. I mean, it should basically be the same as this over here, but we're just gonna mix it up a little bit by making this one different. So we'll go new, put it in broken things, standard sphere. Let's make this one cluster, lots of tiny pieces. That's a lot of pieces for a little ball. Let's maybe make that a little less complex. Yeah, for a tiny little ball. Yeah, something more like that, 4, 4. And we'll go ahead and do a little fracturing. Cool. Do a little explode, see how it looks. Zoop, zoop. Yeah, that seems like the right number of pieces for a tiny little ball. And then we'll go ahead and, you know what, I'm not even going to cluster this one because I just want it to be pretty simple. We're going to fire a lot of these balls out. And that's it. That's it for everything, just to kind of do this with everything in our scene. Let's do a quick little simulate, see how everything is looking. Yeah, I mean, we don't have everything at the right damage thresholds. Oh, we did lose a little piece of the ball, though. That's fun. And now we just want to kind of put all this together. So I think we can just go ahead and drag in our geometry collections to the places they were. You know, and if you don't want the materials to look the way they do here, it's going to be fine on your actual geometry collection. So we had our ball over here, looked like that. Oh, and by the way, if you don't want it to like break right away, which can happen sometimes if your damage threshold is too low, just make sure that under wake you have it not start awake, right? That just makes it also make it so that it'll kind of be up in the air too. So we can kind of start it up here and then we'll see it kind of fall. Let's go ahead and replace you with you. Just have a couple more of these guys. Drag a few more around the scene. Why not? Because we're just making a bit of a playground for ourselves. I'm pressing the wrong button. There we go. Maybe this one's a different scale. Oh, although, you know what? I just started doing all that and then remembered that I want this to be a blueprint too. So let's try this. Let's try swapping these three balls. I swear I didn't do this on purpose. I'm going to take those three and I'm going to swap them out with the blueprint we made, which is just BP breakable. And we'll go ahead and replace with BP breakable. And look at that. It kept the sphere, which is kind of cool. Even the size, all it wants us to do now is say like, hey man, that's not the material I wanted. In fact, I have no idea what that material was called. It is called ball 01, static mesh ball 01. Ball 01. There it is. Boop. There we go. Back to normal. And now we're in the blueprint and we've got the, you know, breakable levels that we've already set up. So we're saving some time there. And oh yes, and then the grabbable cubes. So this probably wants to be its own little extra blueprint because of the grab component if we want something to be grabbable. However, spoiler alert, I'm going to walk you through this because I hope this gets fixed relatively soon and so this process will work. But at the moment, this grab component does not work nicely with everything we have going on here. So let me get rid of this guy. And what I'm going to do, just to walk you through what should be this process, would be to, like, you know, duplicate this, say grabbable, small cube, breakable, you know, even though we should just be able to drop like a grabbable component on any of these, like in a perfect world, this would be fine. And we could say, yeah, man, you can grab this. I mean, I'll do it and you'll see it won't work here. And then I'll do the same thing over here. I think it's important sometimes to show when things aren't working. And we'll open the small cube breakable up. And we will add in our geometry collection and we'll replace the static mesh with it. Attach. So the static mesh is this, SMCube01, and that material. We're just going to do the same thing with the geometry collection. It is, what is it? SMCube01 geometry collection. It's already got the right material there. We can just go ahead and delete this guy. And yeah, I mean, we've got the grab component there. So same way that, you know, the pistol is a skeletal mesh with a grab component and everything else is a static mesh with a grabbable component, this should just work by having the grab component attached, but it won't. We'll do the pistols in a second, but just want to walk you through this real fast. Oh yeah, these are tinier. They are smaller static mesh. They're all 0.3. This one should also be 0.3 then. And we'll go ahead and just swap all of these out. With that guy. Right. Looks like nothing changed, but these are all now breakable now, but they are not grabbable. So you'll see. And in fact, let me just throw in, you know, I'm going to prove that grabbing does still work by leaving one of the grabbable ones there. And let's go ahead and press play. Not there. Let's press play in VR. Make sure our camera has a nice view of everything. Oh, wow. Look, we've already got some things that broke. So yeah, we wouldn't want those to start awake. Remember, we made this one not start awake. And we did not make it grabbable. We did make this one grabbable, but it's already broken. but if I go ahead and, oh my god, I can't reach into my desk this way. So this guy still works, it's still grabbable. I missed. So look, I can't actually grab it. And I did find there's a way that you can start to mess around with the grab component, and then, you know, you're able to grab it, but you can't let go of it. There's like a whole bunch of weird stuff going on with it. So at the moment, you can't grab and throw these. Now, I do have another project where by using a combination of static meshes, which then get swapped out for the geometry collections at runtime, things work, but that feels more complicated to me than it should, so I don't even really want to teach that process. In any case, boom, 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 breaking, breaking, breaking. And the last thing is, I just want to make it so our little pistol guys can break as well. So first of all, let's open this up, make sure nothing looks strange about what's going on here. We have our geometry collection. Our damage. This one is a separate blueprint, so of course it's using its own separate damage. That's why it's still so high. Let's try something like this. Sure. And then remember, for things that we don't want them to break right away, just make sure they do not start awake. So we go awake, and no, don't start awake. And that's something we could actually set up in our blueprint as well. Cool. And yeah, and we can also have stuff that doesn't even have gravity. You know, we can just turn off gravity. Use gravity, just like anything else where you simulate physics, you can start to mess with that. And then, yeah, last thing is we'll get a ball in there, so we'll duplicate our projectile. We'll just make this one a backup. We'll call it, I don't know, what was this, like actual simulate physics, physics backup. And then we're going to swap out the one in here with our little geometry collection. So same thing we just did in the grabbable cube one. We will go ahead and do geometry collection, and same kind of idea here. We can still keep it under the sphere collision, except, yeah, we do not want to simulate physics in the sphere collision, right? Don't do it there. We do want to do it here. Simulate physics, it's already simulating physics by default. We can get rid of the static mesh, and we can go ahead and find our sphere, which, oh, interesting, it doesn't have the material. Right, we didn't keep the material with it, but guess what? We can actually go ahead and change that just by making the material our, what was it, like our projectile material, mi projectile. There we go. So we're doing that over in the actual geometry collection itself, and this all looks fine. We're still going to add some impulse to things when we hit them, and we want to change that damage threshold. Damage. We'll see how that does. A little lower. We'll make this 10. Okay. All right. Let's see how this is all doing. So this is what we're spawning now, because we're actually modifying the direct projectile setup there. All right. So press play. Ooh, those are all breaking super easily. Let's also make sure that these all start closed or not awake. Awake. Geometry collection. Don't start awake. Okay. All right, let's explore. Boop. Yeah, we're letting that one fall and break. That's fine. That's like the one, you know, geometry collection thing we're letting still live here. These are all fine at the moment. Let's see if we can get both of our weapons. Whoa, hello. I know what's going on. This is fun. It's because it's too big. It's too big. Mardi Gras. It is, yeah, I know. Yeah, sphere collision has to have simulate physics enabled if you want to add impulse. Thank you very much. Okay, so a couple things going on. First thing is we want to make sure our geometry collection has that projectile material in here, not just over in the geometry collection. Next thing is, remember, it needs to spawn at like, you know, .118 or something like that. So we can just do that right here. How about 1.2? 1.2 should be fine. That should make it smaller. And then, yeah, we're not even using the sphere collision, so we could actually just get rid of that entirely. But it is actually giving us kind of a scene route to scale everything down, which is okay. And then we want to go over into pistol. So remember what's happening with pistol over here. we are looking for that sphere collision and adding an impulse to the sphere collision, but we are no longer simulating physics on the sphere collision. So we actually want to add the impulse to the, that's right, class, the geometry collection. So boop. And we just kind of leave this down here. I mean, we can add it to both. Sure, why not? In case our projectile changes back, it will get a little bit angry at us. So we'll just do this for now. And yeah, we've already got a bunch of forward vectoring stuff going on. That's all fine. That's a great haptic effect. And hey, real quick, while we're here, let's go ahead and play a little sound when we're firing. Play sound at location. How about at that location of the muzzle? And we will make the sound, oh, I don't know. How about the VR? I like the ungrab sound. Ungrab? Yeah, VR ungrab cue. And you can start to mess with cues if you want, by the way, if you want something to sound a little bit different every time. Let me very quickly detour into showing you that. So we find this, which is over in the editor folder, so don't modify it. We've got this VR ungrabbed cue. Oh, it's a loop cue. Interesting. We don't want the loop one. There's the regular one. And so I'll just bring this over into broken things, copy here. And then for that ungrab cue, I'm just going to go ahead and throw in a modulator. So modulator here, we should be using meta sounds. Meta sounds is like the correct way to do all this stuff now. But we can just start to mess with like, what's the minimum pitch and maximum pitch, and what's the minimum volume and the maximum volume. And, we'll get some of that just from the spatialization that will come from playing it at a location. But that's a really easy way to set that up. And there's that looping checkbox. But yeah, there we go. We're just adding a little sound in to make it that much more interesting. So I'm going to go ahead and press play. Okay, ready? Here we go. There we go. I mean, you only saw the part exploding off of it, but yeah, it's really not some stuff. So if we wanted to mess with our actual physics simulation settings, you can do that with your actual chaos physics actor or over in project settings. I just type in project settings. In our physics settings, there's a whole chaos physics and solver options scenario here where you can start to mess with, are you going to do this over an asynchronous thread on its own? Or are you going to try to sync it up with everything that's going on here? Do you want to have physics prediction? All sorts of things there. That's for replication if you're doing like multiplayer. But in any case, what I'm going to do, just because it'll be a lot easier, is just change my velocity back to something a little more reasonable with my pistol. And I'm just going to bring that down to, say, 1200. Compile, save all. And last thing I want to do is just kind of have stuff, make a sound when it gets hit. And I know I've got 3 different blueprints going on here, but we know these ones are all the same. So let's go ahead and open up this guy in the full blueprint editor. These really all could be the same blueprint, by the way. I was just trying to convert some existing blueprints that may or may not have had some, functionality set up in them that were specific to work here. But what we can do is we can look for our notifies. So like breaks, collisions, for example. So I'll say, I want to know whenever there's a break. And if I do know when there's a break, then if I just type in the word break, I'll see on chaos break event. So now I can say, hey, I want a thing to happen when there is a chaos break event. So very similarly to what we just did with the sound of blasting our little pistol, we are going to do a play sound at location, and we could find out, exactly where the location is of this break event. And let's see, how about, I think I like the ungrab sound, or no, are we already using the ungrab sound? We are, so let's do the regular grab sound for this, and we'll do a VR grab cue, which we want to move out of the editor. Same kind of thing, we're just going to drag it up here into broken things, copy here, and yeah, we really should name these things like a breaking thing and out of muzzle, and breaking thing can have, again, our little modulator, a little repetition just to make sure that we're getting the point here. And we'll bring the pitch down. to maybe 0.4 to 1.3. I'll leave the volume where it is. Save all, save all. And we're going to do this as breaking thing. Sound cue. Great. So that's happening in there. So that's covering a lot of the stuff going on. We can do the same thing. I mean, we can literally just copy that over into this guy over here. We do need to do that notify again. Notify. This one, maybe instead of breaks, we do collisions, and we do collision on chaos physics collision. So then we come off of here. Whoops. Split this. And that's breaking thing again. There's the location. And we'll do something just a little bit special for our actual little blaster balls, our projectiles as they come out. Let's make it so that they can actually slow down time a little bit. And let's get one more different sound for them as well, because these are all going to be the same sound. So let's find our projectile. Slowing down time is always fun in Unreal, especially in VR. So we'll go into projectile, and we are going to do, under geometry collection, this one we'll do it on break, because break is going to be important. So notify breaks, and there's our chaos break event, and we'll split that. And the first time we get a break on each object, although actually that's going to be every time we have a shot. So maybe we don't want to do this on projectile. Maybe we'll do it on the other objects. Well, you can do a slow down time, but here's what we'll do. We'll go ahead and paste this guy over here. We'll have our sound. We'll just pick a slightly different sound. Let's go to something like, camera shutter is a little bit harsh. Click on button. We don't want that one. Compile. No, let's do something we don't hear all the time. All right, that one's not too bad. Drop item from content browser. Sure. So this is just going to be whenever the little ball hits something. And we'll leave that. That's fine. But let's go ahead and make it a little bit special if we go ahead and hit one of our main blueprints here, our BP breakable. So just coming off of here again, what we'll do is one time when this happens, so not on every hit, but the first time it happens, we'll do a do once. And you know what? Actually, we're going to make this a bit of a sequence. All right, ready? So sequence, we're going to do two things. First thing we're going to do is we're going to see if we've already done this do once, okay? And if we haven't done this do once, we're going to go ahead and we're going to set global time dilation. So we'll make it 0.2. And then we'll hold that global time dilation for, I don't know, 5 seconds. And now 5 seconds seems long. I guess we'll do a delay for half a second, which would spread out to a little bit longer than that, something like this. And then we'll set our global time dilation back to 1. Now by default, our sounds aren't going to change based on time dilation. However, what we can do, because remember this is a do once, so this might not happen again, but we do want to get the sound on every hit. What we can do is we can actually find that our pitch multiplier, that's the thing that's going to make this kind of go boom. And I have another video about throwing things in slow motion like you're in friggin' Breaking Bad. And so yeah, the easiest thing to do here, we don't even have to create a variable. We can just get global time dilation. And so what this will do is if time dilation is 1, the pitch multiplier will be 1. If the global time dilation is 0.2, we'll get it nice and slow. So that'll be kind of cool. Okay, I think we've got enough to be getting on with here. Let's go ahead and press play and see what happens. Right off the bat. Yeah, we didn't even do that, but that tells us that something's working. Okay, ready? So first we've just got firing against the wall. Great. Because we hit that. So this is fun. Things are happening in slow motion. Let's take a look from my angle. Actually, you know what? I think the problem is just the fact that we're dealing with collisions, including self-collision. So let's just make sure that everything is only on a break event, which is fewer and far between. Let's make sure we're not looping anything. No, and let's make sure that our breakable, yeah, that's on an actual break event. So I think it's just what's happening on these guys, where it's literally every time there's a collision. So let's go ahead and just change that to, and let's also make just the volume, you know, a lot lower for these because they're smaller objects. And we'll do our notify for breaks. And this will be a little bit less crazy. And without the notify, the other one, you can see it there, but it's not actually going to do anything. Okay, let's see if this is a little more reasonable. If it isn't, we'll add a little print string to see where everything's coming from. Let's also just delete this guy so he's not starting everything off with a literal bang, and see how we're doing. Okay, all's quiet on the Western Front. Let me try, just for fun, grabbing this and throwing it against something. Yeah, I mean, I do like the sound of that. That's pretty cool. Nice and quiet right now. We just and yeah, it's hitting something else. It came awake. Creating a nice little chain reaction. Remember, these don't have gravity, so yeah, they're just kind of flying out. All right, let's see this. Yeah. Cool. I like the variety of sounds we've got here. Boom. Fun. All right. So I think that's all I really wanted to show today. Again, the next step would really be being able to grab stuff and throw them and have them explode along the wall. Can't do that yet in an easy way, but maybe I'll release my little VR rage room thing, which again does it in a way. Just for anyone who really wants to try throwing stuff. But it is pretty fun just to launch things like this as well. One more first person. Yeah, see, like we can't even make anything have a slow-mo global dilation now because everything has had its first break event. So everything's had that do once, use one time. I lied. Okay, that's all for now. Thanks, everyone. Have a good day. Cheers. Goodbye. And yeah, I'll have a GitHub link for this in the description, so look forward to that.